before the record button. So here we are. Thank you for joining this afternoon's webinar on connecting Terrain Navigator Pro with an external GPS device. Thank you for muting yourselves. And if you do have questions along the way, I would ask you to please use the text box to chat. And at the appropriate time, I will be able to answer those questions. We'll also have a time at the end of this training for question and answer as well. So just a reminder, this is being recorded and will be posted up on the TNP YouTube channel. If you've sent an RSVP for this webinar, you will be notified and the link sent to you when that is uploaded. If anyone would like a certificate of completion for the training, please send me directly an email and I will be happy to send that to you. We do recommend that everyone be running Terrain Navigator Pro version 12.10, which is the latest version. If you're not sure what version that you're running, you can always go to the help menu and choose the last entry, which is About. If you need assistance with your upgrade, please contact Terrain Navigator Pro support. So let's get right into our training. Let's talk about reasons to connect a GPS to your Terrain Navigator Pro. The first would be transfer of information between Terrain Navigator Pro and your GPS, and that's what we'll be covering in this webinar. The second reason you would want to would be for real-time position tracking on your Terrain Navigator Pro screen. This will not be covered in this afternoon's webinar. That will be covered in a future webinar. Now, one of the things that I do want to mention at the outset is that both of these features are available to you without using an external GPS unit. This is accomplished by setting up a Terrain Navigator Pro project and synchronization and downloading the Terrain Navigator Pro mobile app. Real-time position tracking can be accomplished using live team tracking display on the TNP desktop. And the person that's gathering the information has the Terrain Navigator Pro mobile app. So please visit our TNP YouTube channel for videos that cover the Terrain Navigator Pro mobile app. So just setting some goals for today's training. We'll be learning how to connect an external GPS unit to TNP using either the GPS setup wizard or the preferences window. We'll also learn how to transfer markers, routes, and so forth from Terrain Navigator Pro to the GPS unit, and conversely, how to download markers, routes, and so forth from Terrain Navigator Pro to the unit. Finally, we'll learn how to transfer a custom map for display on compatible Garmin GPS units. The scope of this webinar is to show you how to set up your GPS with Terrain Navigator Pro and how to transfer information between Terrain Navigator Pro and the GPS units. We'd refer you to your GPS owner's manual to learn the individual features of your unit for settings and so forth. Should you encounter any problems connecting Terrain Navigator Pro and your GPS unit, we ask you to please contact TNP support. If you're having technical issues with the GPS unit, please contact your manufacturer for assistance. So the first topic we want to discuss this afternoon is GPS compatibility. The scope of this GPS training webinar will be limited to monitored Garmin GPS units. There are a large number of different manufacturers and GPS units, but what we want to do is specifically focus on Garmin units that have become the industry standard. So we'll be focusing on that this afternoon. So Terrain Navigator Pro is compatible, however, with other GPS units. If the GPS that you have is not on our officially supported list, you may still use Terrain Navigator Pro with the unit by using we recommend the GPS Map 62 setting. If you have an older unit, and if you're not sure if it's supported, please contact our technical support and they can send you a list of compatible GPS units and a knowledge-based article on how to proceed to get that connected to Terrain Navigator Pro. So the very first thing that you want to do with Terrain Navigator Pro is to connect it, your GPS unit to your computer, and using a standard USB cable. One of the things that the device I'll be using in this afternoon's training is the Garmin GPS Map 62, which is a very popular unit. And so we'll just go forward with that. So without further ado, when you connect Terrain Navigator Pro and you have Terrain Navigator Pro open and you connect the GPS device to Terrain Navigator Pro, this is the display that you will see on the Garmin unit. So the way that you know that Terrain Navigator Pro has connectivity is through this USB symbol. This is what it looks like on my particular GPS unit. Your mileage may vary depending on the unit that you have. Now, one of the things that I do want to do is I'm going to bring up Terrain Navigator Pro here for a second and want to just mention, you'll see at the lower bottom right-hand corner, there are a number of different buttons, and you'll see like Internet is Green. You'll see a GPS button there. Just want to quickly touch on something. If you're an end user and you connect Terrain Navigator Pro to a GPS unit via your USB cable, this GPS light is not going to turn green. That GPS, when that light is green, what that indicates is that Terrain Navigator Pro is connected to the GPS for position tracking. So just in case you were wondering about that, just want to cover that. So something to be something to know. So the first way to connect after you have connected your USB cable to your computer, the way that you would set up your TNP with the particular unit is using the GPS setup wizard. And the GPS setup window is under the GPS menu. You would choose GPS setup wizard. So let's go ahead. And the GPS wizard allows you to go ahead and connect. Now I'm going to ask you to bear with me because I am going to connect my GPS to Terrain Navigator Pro, just so that we can go through these screens and take a look at some of those to set up your particular unit. So just a moment. Okay, I have my Garmin GPS connected, and the wizard is designed to help you to connect to that easily. So let's go ahead and click through the next button. And Terrain Navigator Pro, the setup wizard will ask you, do you have a GPS unit to use? If you don't, you can say no, but it will help you to know what types of configurations that you have. So I do have a GPS unit. I'm going to go ahead and click. And what wizard is going to ask you, does your GPS use location services? My GPS, the Garmin 62 map, does not use location services, but you can select that. We'll go ahead and click next. Do you have a cable and any adapters? So again, using that USB cable to connect your unit to the computer. And what the wizard says is that the following USB GPSs are installed. If you have not done so already, connect your GPS unit to Terrain Navigator Pro, and you can go ahead and click next. And it needs to know the manufacturer. So here you'll have a drop-down list for the different types of GPS units that are that are supported by Terrain Navigator Pro. You'll also see that there's a selection here if you don't see your GPS. And we're going to go ahead and click next. And what you'll see is the GPS unit is now configured for use with Terrain Navigator Pro as shown. Garmin GPS Map 62S USB. You may now activate the GPS. So now we've established that we do have connectivity between Terrain Navigator Pro and our GPS unit. I'm going to go ahead and click Finish here. And so that is one easy way to establish connectivity between TNP and your GPS. The other way to connect Terrain Navigator Pro to your unit is going to be, there's a different way if you don't want to use the wizard. Sometimes folks don't like to use the wizard for whatever reason. You can, if you have a special configuration or if you want to set up the GPS manually, what you can do is go to GPS, you can go to Setup. And let's just take a moment here to discuss this particular window here. So we're in the category GPS Setup. Again, there's a drop-down list to choose your GPS device. You can also, there'll be all the different types of GPS units that you can connect. And you can go ahead and select it and set your GPS up manually. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window. So those are two different ways to connect your GPS to Terrain Navigator Pro. And once you've established your connectivity with the two devices, you can then transfer waypoint, route, and track information between Terrain Navigator Pro and your GPS unit. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint slide here. So just a second. So again, there's the display. I'm connected, and we're good to go. For this training, I set up my Garmin GPS to collect data. For more information on setting up your GPS and accessing the features, consult your GPS owner's manual. When I did my recording of my track, I collected, or not collected, but I marked 5 waypoints, and I collected 1 track. And just to give you an idea here, this is my Garmin 62 GPS map. This was a screenshot of my 5 waypoints. I have a start, waypoint, a finish, and I just labeled the other waypoints 1, 2, and 3. Using my GPS, I labeled my webinar, my track, GPS webinar track. And I went and I took my unit and I went and collected my information. So this is a screenshot of my waypoints and my track that are displayed on my GPS unit. And what we're going to do now, once you have finished recording your track, you've collected your waypoints, what you want to do is transfer data from GPS to Terrain Navigator Pro. So in order to do that, we want to make sure, again, that our device is connected. So you come back from recording your track, you want to download your tracks, you connect via USB. You'll see your connection as denoted by the USB symbol on the GPS. And you can then import your waypoints, routes, and track logs to Terrain Navigator Pro. I just want to take a moment here to clarify GPS terminology. You record a track on your GPS. This is a breadcrumb trail of where you've been. A route, on the other hand, is where you are going. So you can create a route ahead of time and navigate to that. Waypoints are strung together to form a route. So simply stated, a route's where you're going, a track is where you have been. So let's go ahead now and import. I want to show you how we import our information from Terrain Navigator Pro. So here we are in Terrain Navigator Pro. We're going to go to the GPS menu. And what we're going to do is receive from GPS. So once we select that setting, we can receive from the GPS waypoints, routes, track logs. So for example, let me go ahead and I think we've got someone. If you would please check your microphones to mute yourself, that would be appreciated. We do have some feedback coming into the loop. Back to our training here. Once again, we go to GPS, receive from GPS waypoints. And once we do this, you'll see we have GPX import, and Terrain Navigator Pro will display the list of markers and waypoints that are available on the GPS. You can select one or all of those waypoints, and then what you would do is to click import. So I have duplicates of my waypoints because I re-imported those, but you will see this list and you will be able to import those. You can collect those waypoints like that. Now, one of the things that, again, under GPS, receive from GPS routes, you can go ahead and receive your routes. Again, you would select them and you would click on import and bring those into Terrain Navigator Pro. Lastly, again, under receive from GPS track logs, you'll see I do have a number of different tracks. Terrain Navigator Pro will give you the different segments, and you can select which tracks that you want to import. And you'll see GPS webinar track here. So that is how to get information into Terrain Navigator Pro from your GPS. Again, just a reminder as we're going through the training, if you have any questions, you can type them in the text. And we'll also have, again, we'll have a time of question and answer at the end of this training. So once you've imported your data into Terrain Navigator Pro, and let me go back to my PowerPoint here for a second. So just a second here. Let's go ahead and go back to our training. So this is, again, just a refresher here, our markers here. Once you import your waypoints and your route into Terrain Navigator Pro, Terrain Navigator Pro will display those with the names that were given on the GPS, which is an important thing. Now I just want to take a moment to talk about, once you've imported your waypoints and your track into Terrain Navigator Pro, you can then add more information to your map using the Terrain Navigator Pro tools. So let me go ahead, I'm just going to pull up Terrain Navigator Pro. And you'll see you can use any of the tools in Terrain Navigator Pro to go ahead and create markers. You can create tracks, you can put a polygon, you can do all sorts of things with that. So one of the things that I want to mention here is that when you do that, let's go ahead and turn on my layers. So I'm going to use my shortcut here, and we're going to turn on my layers. I have my streets layer turned on in Terrain Navigator Pro. You'll see right here, I have my GPS data. And what I did was, using the Terrain Navigator Pro tools, I created a Terrain Navigator Pro marker, and I labeled them Terrain Navigator Pro marker 1 and 2. Created a track here. And what I did also to my map was I took the parcel data layer. Let me go ahead and give me a second here. We'll turn that on. And what we did was this pink triangle is actually a piece of land. And I said, okay, I want to have that tract of land available on my GPS. I want to be able to take it from Terrain Navigator Pro, and I want to be able to send that to my GPS, because I'm going to take the information that I've annotated on my map, my TNP marker 1 and 2, my track, and now this land parcel, and I want to send that information to the GPS. So if, for those of you that do have the Terrain Navigator Pro parcel subscription, and it's handy to have that land parcel on the GPS, it's simple to do. What you do is you would, let's say you wanted to take this one here. So you would take the cursor, you would right click on it, and you would say create track. You could give it a name, and you'll see Terrain Navigator Pro, depending on your preferences. I have mine set to black with a yellow highlight. It will go ahead and create a track for you. I'm going to go to my layer size visibility. I'm going to turn off parcels. And you'll see. So for the demonstration purposes for this afternoon, what I did was I highlighted this land track as a pink, as a pink track. So let me go ahead. I am going to the track that I just created. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to turn that one off, and I'm going to close my window just so that we don't have a cluttered screen. So let me go ahead and go back to my PowerPoint. So just a minute here. So here's our markers. Now what we do, let me go back to Terrain Navigator Pro, because I did want to display now. Here's my information. If I want to send the new data that I've created in Terrain Navigator Pro, my markers and my tracks, what I do is go to the GPS menu, and I say send to GPS. So once I send to GPS, I can send my markers, my routes, tracks, polygons in current map. So let's say if we wanted to send the markers, here's our markers here. You'll see TNP marker 1 and 2. Again, you can just select the markers that you've created with Terrain Navigator Pro and send those. Click on the Send to GPS menu, and you'll be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel on that. Again, I just want to say again, so for my tracks and my routes, that's the process that I was able to export the Terrain Navigator Pro markers and tracks to my GPS. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my PowerPoint. And what you'll see is on my Garmin GPS Map 62, you'll see the TNP markers and so forth. So this was we already went through the screen. And you'll see my triangle, my pink triangle. You'll see the TNP land track that I created on the GPS device. And so pretty much what we're learning is how to get information from our GPS and how to send information to the GPS. So we want to now turn our attention to exporting a custom map from Terrain Navigator Pro to the GPS. And again, I just bring this screen up as a reminder, because you might be just sitting down and you might have done some work in Terrain Navigator Pro and you want to take that custom map and you want to export it to the GPS. So again, just a reminder that you do want to make sure you have established connectivity between TNP and your Garmin. And one of the things that you will do, I'm going to go ahead and bring Terrain Navigator Pro back up. Here we go. And just a quick note on custom maps. Not every GPS supports custom maps, so you'll have to know your individual GPS unit and whether or not it does. Contact the manufacturer if you, or the owner's manual, if you are unsure if your GPS supports that feature. So we're in Terrain Navigator Pro, and we create a custom map in Terrain Navigator Pro by using the selection tool. So let me just go to a different area here of my map. I'm going to grab my hand tool. I'm just going to go to a different area of my map. So let's say right here, this section of map right here, I want to be able to take this as a custom map. So what I'm going to do is take my selection tool, and you'll see there's a pink box, which is the user-defined area. So I want to define the area. So I'm going to adjust my user-defined area for the custom map. And let's say I really want to focus in on, this is the area that I want to focus on. So what we would do is take this pink box. What I'm going to do is right-click on the pink box. And you'll see there's a feature here that says send map to GPS. So I've already got it connected. One of the things that we do have to talk about with Terrain Navigator Pro is that the types of maps that can be exported to GPS is going to be limited. Terrain Navigator Pro needs to either be, satellite photos are not exportable as custom maps. However, aerial photos and merged aerial photos are you can export those. You can also export USGS topos. So just want to make a note of that. So once again, just to reiterate, custom maps, you are not able to export satellite photos. So here we are. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to right click. I'm going to send the map to the GPS. And it's going to ask you to give it a name. So you can go ahead and type in, we'll call this GPS, or we'll call this quality drive map. Now, let's say I had layers on this area of the map. Let's say I had markers, Terrain Navigator Pro markers, or routes, or polygons. You can select right here if you want to embed those layers in the custom map when you export it to the GPS. Or you can just say, no, I just want to make this map available to Terrain Navigator Pro. To the GPS. And what you'll do is send to GPS. So you'll click on send to GPS. Now, one of the things, I'm going to go ahead and save and manage this. And Terrain Navigator Pro will bring up the manage GPS window. Now, alternatively, if you have a number of custom maps and you want to manage those, again, under the GPS window, you'll go to Manage GPS Maps. So this is where you would oversee and manage the custom maps that are in Terrain Navigator Pro. This window will allow you to send your custom maps and other information to the GPS. Just want to talk a little bit about custom maps, and this is very important. Most Garmin GPSs have a 100-tile limit, and that limit is a hard and fast 100 tiles, and that is not determined by Terrain Navigator Pro. That is determined by Garmin. Please understand that it's not a memory limitation, and it's certainly not a limitation for Terrain Navigator Pro. So to the end user, this tile limitation is not obvious and it's not intuitive. You have to go hunt through owner's manuals or whatever. You don't get a message on your Garmin unit on the number of tiles that you can export or import, excuse me. So This is why Terrain Navigator Pro will tell you how many tiles you have in the Manage Custom Maps window. So let's take a look at this window right here. You'll see the list of available maps. You'll see the one that I just created. You can manage these maps. You can delete them. You can get information on them. Now, the very first one I have selected here, it could have been any of those. It could have been the one that I just created. So if I go ahead and get information on that, this is where you'll get the technical information on that map, what the file size is, what the map scale is, what type of map it is, and you'll also get the extent of the map, what the coordinates are. So a very useful way to get technical information on the custom map and exactly what's contained in it. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Again, just sticking with managing our available custom maps. You can rename them, you can export them, and you can send to Google Earth. A few minutes ago, I mentioned to you about the number of tiles and how you can know in Terrain Navigator Pro. Terrain Navigator Pro gives you a window into the number of tiles that you have. So for example, on the quality drive map that we just created, you'll see GPS properties. It'll give you the GPS device. It will tell you the amount of memory that's available on the device, and it will tell you the total number of tiles used. Now, remember, the magic number that we're looking at that the Garmin will import is 100 tiles. So it will tell you total tiles used is 3. So the GPS Manage Maps window is a critical window into getting information about your custom maps, managing your custom maps, renaming them, deleting them, and so forth. So this is fantastic. So let's say we want to go ahead and take one of the maps, custom maps that we've created, we've given it a name, and we want to send it to the GPS. So we can click on highlight the custom map that you want to import, and you can go ahead and click the Send to GPS. Click on the Send to GPS button. Now, Terrain Navigator Pro does give you the ability, once you've uploaded tiles or uploaded maps to the GPS, you can remove them from the device. Again, that communication is going through the USB wire. You can remove them from the Terrain Navigator Pro Manage window. So that's good to know. Let's say you have too many custom maps on your device, and it's going through all your submenus and trying to find it. To delete all of those, Terrain Navigator Pro gives you an easy way to manage those. So again, you can manage your maps and remove them from the GPS device using the Remove button. And again, GPS map information, just as we discussed previously. I'm going to go ahead and click Close on this, but this is very good information. When I was getting ready for our training, and I was, let me go ahead, I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to minimize Terrain Navigator Pro. When I exported the map in Terrain Navigator Pro on my GPS map, the name of my custom map was the Manchester North Southwest. And you'll see this is a screenshot of that listed on the on the Garmin GPS device. So that's what that looks like. And here is a display of a custom map on the GPS. And if you bear with me for just a second, okay, we've done that, we show what that looked like. Okay, now we have demonstrated so far how to set up your GPS with Terrain Navigator Pro. We talked about how to download information from the GPS to Terrain Navigator Pro, and how to get information from Terrain Navigator Pro back to the GPS. We've already covered custom maps in Terrain Navigator Pro, and how to export those custom maps for those GPS device units that are capable of handling those custom maps. How to do that, how to manage our custom maps. I do want to give you a word on the GPX file format. Many GPS manufacturers have adopted the GPX. GPX stands for GPS Exchange Format. They've adopted this as the standard protocol for sharing marker, route, and track information. So TNP can import and export waypoints or export markers, import routes and tracks in that file format. So just want to touch on this real quick in case you do need to be able to do that. You would go to the File menu, and you would go to Import, and you would go to Markers. Let's say you want to import markers, and you'll see here the Import Markers window comes up in Terrain Navigator Pro. There's a drop-down list, and you'll see the different types of file formats that you can import in Terrain Navigator Pro. One of those, as you'll see, is the GPS Exchange format. So let's say you had a GPX file that was downloaded, it was on your computer, and it was separate from, let's say, having the GPS connected to Terrain Navigator Pro. Let's just say you had a GPX file, or someone sent you a GPX file or something of that nature. This is how you would import that GPX file into Terrain Navigator Pro. So again, you would use the file import, and you could use markers, routes, or whatever. So GPX is a universal standard among companies to transfer markers, routes, and tracks. And because Terrain Navigator Pro supports the GPX file format, that's what makes TNP compatible with virtually any GPS device or software. One last thing that I do want to cover in this afternoon session, let me go ahead and clear my selection here for my selection tool. One of the things that you can do is, let's say you're setting to head out to go out into the field, and you want to plan out your route ahead of time in Terrain Navigator Pro, and you want to be able to set up a route. You can easily use the route tool in Terrain Navigator Pro. Let me go ahead and grab my route tool. Let's say I knew my route was going to take me, let's say, for example, I'd be coming along here. Maybe I would have a waypoint here and coming along here. I'm going to go ahead and let me finish my route. What you'll see is that once you use the route tool in Terrain Navigator Pro, you can go ahead and send route to GPS. And that will allow you to send that route to the GPS and then use the GPS to navigate to that location. So we've covered a lot here in this afternoon's webinar. I'd like to open it up for any questions that anyone might have on this afternoon's training. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. If you want to text a question, be happy to do that as well. Do we not have any questions? Okay, well, if we don't have any additional questions, I'd like to thank you for joining this afternoon's webinar. I'd like to mention a couple of things. If you do would like a training certificate for this afternoon's webinar, please send me an email and I'll be happy to email you a certificate. I'd also like to ask you if you have any suggestions for future training webinars to please go ahead and email those suggestions. We are open to how our customers would, what types of trainings customers would like to see in the future. And also, for those of you that, need support, don't forget to go to tnp.uservoice.com. There you can join the Terrain Navigator Pro community. You can make suggestions for the desktop or the mobile app. And I think that pretty much wraps up this afternoon's training. One last thing to mention, if you do want free one-on-one training, let's say you're working on a particular project and you kind of need to get something taken care of, please contact me directly. We can get that scheduled for you. There's no charge for that. We just want to make sure that our customers are able to fully take advantage of their Terrain Navigator Pro subscription. Well, thank you so much, folks. If this has been helpful, please send me a personal email, or if there's anything that I can do. Thank you so much, Robert and Cheryl, and Roger Sternberg. I do have a couple of questions that I missed. So before I wrap up here, I know some people have already moved off. There was a question, do you need to go through setup every time? And the answer to that is no, you do not need to set up your GPS every time. Once you see that it's connected, you should be all set. I have another question here. Is there a benefit of using standalone versus the phone app? So the question of using standalone Terrain Navigator Pro versus the phone app. The Terrain Navigator Pro mobile app for data collection does require an internet connection. And so sometimes if folks are heading out into the field and there's spotty coverage or there's no coverage at all, that might be a limitation for the mobile app. But if you took your GPS, GPS will work independent of internet connection. So you might want to weigh out the area that you're going out to in the field to do your data collection and make the best decision that you need to at that time. Do we have any other questions? Well, thank you so much, folks, for joining. I hope you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. And we'll see you for the training next time. Have a great day.